Hello everyone, dear hackers. This is DC Pro Max from the Hacker Base. In this lesson, we will be creating a website header, an application header. This is one of the most important things, so listen carefully. And if you want to ask me questions after the lesson and gain access to the closed Hacker Base, follow the link in the description to the bot, and the bot will direct you to the closed channel, or scan the QR code that I regularly insert in the video. Well, let's start creating our header. To create the header, first we go to the HTML page. You need to make it Life Rule Control Shift or Command Shift, depending on the platform. So everything we looked at last time, see what we need to do. We have two ways to insert a header. Either create a div, block element with an ID, and give it a header. So for this, we need to assign it the ID header because it is a unique element, meaning it will not be repeated. But this is a cinematically incorrect option. What does it mean, cinematically incorrect? It's like putting an ugly spare tire on a car, for example. The car will drive, you can travel long distances comfortably, but it will not be right, cinematically incorrect. Because a car needs the right wheel that matches all the others. Similarly, in HTML, we have a cinematically correct element. It is called a header, therefore we will use it. We remove this header. Returning to the styles accordingly, we need to specify and refer to this header. Here, I remind you this is a header, not an ID, not a class. Therefore, we can refer to it directly, and naturally, the first thing we need to do is specify it. Its normal height for the header is 80 pixels. And the width should be the width of the entire page. 100%, so it occupies 100% of the width. And of course, we need to specify the border. 1 pixel solid with a nice color, a light gray color. And look, you see, but we don't need a border around the entire outline. For the header, we only need a border at the bottom, so here we can add bottom. This property also works for top, left, right, depending on which border you need to display. Look at the problem we encountered because we set padding of 20 pixels for the body and all elements. And considering that the header is also inside the body, our padding applies everywhere. But we don't need this padding for the header. How can we solve this problem? For this, we need to separate the header from all the other content. We can't move it outside the body in any way because that's incorrect. That is, the body is the main tag, which is the root. Therefore, we need to put all the other content except for the header into some kind of container. In our case, this would be a div. We can assign it an ID because it is a unique element. There won't be any more like this on this page. I remind you, an ID can only be used once, meaning if it's a container, it's a unique element, while classes can be reused. So naturally, we delete this, copy it over, and we need to close it here to encompass all the content. So, Command, Control, and to select all in format, here's format selection. You can actually set up a shortcut, but I won't be doing that right now. Alright, look, we've placed all the content. See, here it is. Now it's located in the container. And accordingly, we can now set padding of 20 pixels to the container instead of the body without touching the body. That is, it was for testing purposes, it would be incorrect if we apply it to the body. So here's padding, 20 pixels. Alright, see, now we definitely, the padding is only applied to our container. Look, there's another thing. You see, there's still this default margin here. This is HTML, our overlay, we can deal with it. To remove this tiny default margin, you need to go back and set margin in the body, meaning the distance, 0. For all sides now you see we've gotten rid of its default margin. This is the foundation. In general, it's better to touch these elements as little as possible, right? That is, you can set the main one, right? The main default font, the same margin for the body, that's it. Well, we have a header. Next, we need to add a title to the header. Well, a logo, in other words. So, for this we use a block element, and today, by the way, we have a very interesting topic. Right now it's Flexbox, the arrangement of all elements on the page, which is also very important. We'll set it, and no, we won't reuse it, but let's give it an ID anyway. Title. because it will be, let it be unique. So I want to move this, roughly speaking, over here. I'll copy it right from here. And in turn, we'll remove the H1. We have this unsightly thing. Now we will deal with these. Watch. Now we move on to our Flexbox. Listen and remember carefully. Flexbox is the arrangement and interaction of elements within a container. In this case, the header is the container. Inside it, there is another container that contains, let's do this now, let's center it. Let's center this title vertically. That is, you need to understand there is centering both vertically and horizontally. We need to specify that the header has a display flex, which means it will adhere to the rules of a Flexbox. By default, all div containers come with a block display, so we never specify it because it's by default. That's how all containers are by default. So we make such display blocks flex. Then what we need to do is align the content vertically. There is a property called align item center. You see, but there's a problem. For some reason it didn't align to the center. Look, here's how you can debug HTML elements to see where the boundaries are. This property is called outline. 1 pixel solid, for example, red. Let it be Y. Outline and not border, because a border takes up 1 pixel and will shift your layout. Outline does not affect your layout in any way, so it's better to use it to see the debug. Okay, look in the header. We saw in the header we need to address who this is. The title is also out. Outline, you can see everything written, but why is it not centered? But I think I know why. It's a tricky topic. See, there's a div here. We once referred to it, which means we are addressing all divs on the page. We don't need that. We need to delete it immediately. That's it. We centered it. These, you see, everything we did for P for H1. They will influence all our elements within the page. Therefore, over time, it's better to get rid of all this and refer by ID. And by class, not by semantic element. Because if our header is unique, that is, if it's the only one, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you write H1 somewhere on the page, you might not understand why a color was applied to it. This one, and it seems that somewhere you are all CSS. Alright, you see everything with the help of Flex, we centered further. And what I would like to do is add padding to the header on the left and right. Look, padding. Remember again, the first number is for the top padding, 0. Next, the number for the left is 20 pixels. Then the number for the top right is not set. Then for the bottom, 0 pixels. And right, 20 pixels. Remember all of it. Yes, this is for the top, right, not left, so remember it just like your name. We centered everything further. Look, we used to have from this GTA news under the tag and Chuan. You can copy these styles from it and just transfer them to the title. Look, we remove all one and swagger. We need to get rid of this. Then we can set the font size. So I want to make a one-line indent between the outline, so it's clear that debugging needs to be removed later. So I want to specify for it. Font size. Remember the unspoken rule that, what is the font size now? 20 pixels. No, well, let it be 30. It's kind of cool, the unspoken rule that first we write everything related to sizes, and then we write down all the properties. In this case, in the frame, we first write display flex. Everything related to flex, then pixels, and then color customization. So in this format. Next, look, I want to add the right part, which on our site application is usually navigation, meaning prices there. We have all sorts of other things for this. Again, it's called cinematically correct for us. Let me remind you, you can absolutely use divs everywhere, wherever you want. Block elements instead of header, instead of nav. Well, I'm teaching you the correct semantics. Because from an SEO perspective, even when you, for example, host a site on a Google server, it responds very positively when there is a semantically correct site, meaning it helps it rank better in search. Nav means that we are creating navigation. Nav, as far as I remember, is also a block element. So inside you, I want to create links to other pages that we can potentially navigate to in HTML. And for links, we use A, and to specify a link to a page, we need to use href. Remember, it's through reference. Well, let's say, imagine that we potentially have a subpage about HTML. Okay. And I want another type. If we created a site, we provide some services. Services HTML, let's create it right here so we don't postpone it. About HTML and services HTML. Let's make it distinguishable. We'll make it a heading so that it's a title, like this. Service S. And in about, we'll naturally put, and here's about, to differentiate the pages. Yes. And look at what we've got. Watch carefully. This is going to be a very important part. We encountered an unpleasant issue. You see the page scrolls horizontally. And if we define an outline for our body, here's our body and our header. For some reason it went beyond the body. Do you know what the problem is? We set the header with 20 pixels of padding on the left and right, and padding affects the size. How does CSS work? If we have an element's width, let's say in our case 100%, and padding, this 20 pixels, yes, it pushes elements inward, but it adds 20 pixels to the sides. So our header became 40 pixels wider in total. How can we avoid this? There is a magical property called box sizing. Border box. You see, we have a layout. The header works at full width, meaning it doesn't exceed the boundaries of the post border box. The border box tells our HTML. And if we use padding, there's no need to increase the size of the header by that amount. So remember, this is essential. All right, got it. Removing the outline from the body, I couldn't understand why it wasn't displaying. I forgot to specify here about inside the text and services. You see, we have two links. We will now style them. Watch what happens if we navigate. About here we navigated to this page of our HTML, but if we go to services, we navigated. Now you have become familiar with page navigation, and you can create an infinite number of pages this way. This is a very important element. So now we need to deal with the layout. Let's do it right away. Let's immediately refer to the navbar, which is located in the header. Look, what I recommend, I always advise using encapsulation, which I explained in the last lesson. We can directly refer, of course, to the channel that is subscribed here. Yes, but it's better for us to use this format, that is to specify that it is inside the header, so to speak. You see the header, this means that we are specifically referring to the navbar that is inside the header. Because if we define a nav, let's say from the outside, another one there, the properties will still only apply to this one on the field. Always use encapsulation to reduce the number of problems. Next, I naturally want to define an outline for it, to see what it represents well. We centered all the elements vertically using Flexbox, so what about horizontally? There is a magical Flexbox property called justify content. Justify content. There are many different ways. The best and most convenient property is space between. In English, the literal translation means the space between. There is also space around. You see, this means that it will add equal spacing on all sides. So like this. There's simply center, in the center. Well, as I said, the most common is space between. That is, it applies spacing, pushing the elements to the maximum distance between each other. You see, this is the padding we set, 20 pixels left and right, and this is the property. Justify content space between. Next, look, I want to style the links. Let's imagine that on our website, we want to style all the links absolutely. For example, those that are in the navigation. First of all, I don't like that underscore at the bottom. For this, the property is called text decoration. Look at how many different properties it has. Underline solid. You can strike through text and so on, but in this case but they removed everything. Next I want to do, and in the park itself, this text. Transform. Uppercase. Yes. Next I want to use shift fonts. It's better to use the font family at first. We connected asphalt in the last lesson. While there is asphalt, weight font, text thickness, the text boldness is bold. Next, I don't like that there is such a small distance between the links. I can set, for example, a margin to have a gap, so each link has space, let's say 20 pixels. You will see that's it. We set the margin, meaning 20 pixels on all sides. Everything looks beautiful. Let's now remove all these borders, or rather I won't remove them, I'll comment them out because you can always bring them back later, but here they are not needed at all. The header removes the nav, and I showed you as an example, and you need to find the title. So remove it, comment it out. That's all. This is the page we ended up with, and we have it appearing. Let's slightly reduce the font size via the title. Let's say let it be 25. Everything is great. Well, we can also set a background color here. I'll set it here. Background color, for example. And if you set it, and I struggle, but it blends with the border. And we'll make the border a darker color. I just know these by heart, so you understand, so you should also memorize them by heart. You know what I don't like? I still don't like that the border is too thick. And you know what we can do? This is a bonus for you. For the lesson, you can specify colors in the RGB format. And what does this mean? RGB stands for red, green, blue, alpha. Red, green, blue. Remember in school we used to take, for example, blue and green colors in coloring books, mix them and get another color. It's the same in computer art. Our graphics processor understands only 3 colors. No others are given. Reds, green, and blue, and it mixes them together. Can you imagine that? Just the same. The alpha channel is the transparency of the channel, meaning how transparent the color will be. So if it's 1, then it's completely opaque. If it's 0, then it's completely transparent. Look, all these colors represent numbers in the RGB format. For example, the color black is 65, 65, 65. You can also remember this, the color black standard. Alpha part channel. And if we set it to 1, look, you see, here's alpha channel 1, so let's make it halfway, half. Transparent, 0.1, transparent. Well, I want not even that, 0.15, 0.1, 0.05 to make it 0.5%. There you go. Look how nice it turned out. Now, one more addition about Flex. Look, Flex has a property called Flex Direction. Flex Direction is by default always row. That's its default, meaning even if we don't specify it, it still applies. This means we are controlling the elements horizontally. Look at what will happen with the second property. We can specify column. This means that it understands. All our commands are now vertical. That is vertically when you need to do something with the elements. Vertically we use column, otherwise it's row. Look, align. Items has 3 properties. These are center, flex, start, flex, end. That is, it's not top or bottom. I mean, they decided to make it flex, and flex start is at the very top and center is in the middle, meaning flex. I advise you to dig into the documentation. I'll send links. Study it yourself. Well, here I'll write down for you what other options there are. Space. Space. Round. Center. There's also flex start. Flex end. Here, column, row. Column. By the way, a good idea, I'll write comments for you. Like these, flex start, center. There, that's there. And the link to the sandbox, to this code, can be found in the description of this video. You can open the same code and play around with it. But as always, I advise you to follow along with me and do it locally on your computer. I know there might have been a lot of confusion in this lesson because there's a lot of material flex. I will add links for self-education and also pin them in the description inside the code. I will also create a sandbox for you with the same code, which I created and recommend you to follow along with me. And be sure to join the hacker base through the bot, either via QR code or the link in the description. And there I will answer your additional questions. And from there you will also be able to access all the lessons. And not just coding, but also about career and everything else. And this was DC Promax from the hacker base with you. Thank you for watching this lesson. See you in the next one.